Legs.
Hello. Welcome to the third episode for the SAE Podcast. And so we've covered historic stuff like the McLaren. McLaren as a brand, McLaren's history in F1, how history was kind, unkind to the brand. Then we looked upon Air India, how Tata founded Air India and how it came to be and what the future scope is for the airlines. Now today we've come up with something that is not equally as historic, but I'd say in the recent 2000s.
Not historic but iconic.
Yeah,
Not
it is
historic,
iconic.
but iconic.
I mean, if you look at it in the last decade or like 2 decades, it is one of the most iconic things that have happened.
And we are talking about the Silver War in
Yes.
motorsports, in F1 to be particular, which is basically the era between 2000 and 2010, where we had Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton, and how friendship that was there since childhood was then turned to bitter rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, at that time Mercedes had just entered back into F1. It was
With
emerging
the bronze
again.
GP.
Yeah. So like from bronze GP it became Mercedes. Then they had returning legend Michael Schumacher returning,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about it how Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton eventually became what we know as now iconic rivalry.
Yes. So
Yeah.
how do we want to go about this? I think we cover Mercedes first, what Mercedes is going through in the early 2000s.
Okay.
Then let's talk about Nico Rosberg, an individual, Lewis Hamilton, an individual, and then how it played out between them.
Yeah, I think that works.
And I mean, this might not be the best background as you might see.
It
But-
is still F1, I mean.
Yeah.
Progress is progress, no matter how small.
I like this background. I don't like the topic which we are going to cover. I like this background.
Yeah.
But yeah, we thought that this is the first video podcast, and we thought we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, it is a proper occasion, right? I mean, we are all F1 fans.
Yes.
It makes sense to.
Fans
you know,
are clearly
record.
not around the corner,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah. And to the people who are listening to this on Spotify, head on over to YouTube so that.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have a better interactive session with us, if you might say that.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's start then.
Okay, so first let us talk about how this entire Mercedes as a team on their own emerged. So if I recall correctly, there were initially a tie between McLaren and Mercedes, right?
Yes.
So
Which we spoke about in our podcast.
Yes,
Yeah.
in our first podcast, we talk about how McLaren Mercedes were a very famous and very successful F1 team.
Yes.
So, I think now Khush is referring to a time of 2007-2008.
yeah, so what happened during this 2007-2008 time is that some senior engineer from Ferrari, they had some bitter relations with some other senior technical heads, and so what they decided is that they would that particular engineer, he would steal a lot of documents from Ferrari. So a lot of technical drawings, a lot of budget details, a lot of documents on all sort of team data. He stole all those data and he gave it to his wife so that the wife could take a photocopy of those particular documents and share it to any other particular team. So that was done. He gave it to his wife. His wife went to the photocopier, took all the photocopies, gave the original documents back, and brought the entire photocopied bunch back to her, back to their house. Now, this particular senior engineer at Ferrari, he was a really good friend at another engineer at Mercedes McLaren.
Okay.
And they gave all of these data to that engineer at Mercedes McLaren. So, I mean, and they almost got away with it.
Yeah.
Now, where they were caught was that the particular stationery shop where the wife went to get all the photocopies, that owner who did the photocopy was a huge tiffus. So that guy, he directly mailed SIA
Oh God.
and told, and no, what he did was he also asked the woman that who are you? So she told her name, he googled her name, the name showed up, who is he?
I mean,
who is
like
she?
like they should have bought a photocopier. I think that would have been cheaper
Yeah.
as a whole
Yeah.
deal as compared to
And less risky too.
yeah, less risky too.
So yeah, that's what happened, and both of those teams, McLaren as well as Mercedes, faced a lot of fines, and because of that entire scandal, the Mercedes McLaren tie-up, it got very loose, and Mercedes kind of lost the faith in the McLaren tie-up.
But naturally.
Yeah,
So
I mean, they had
Mercedes then
tensions.
ventured away
Yeah.
from McLaren.
Not like directly, but in a way they were still the engine supplier for them, but
Yeah.
they wanted to have something of their own in F1 now.
And hence
Yeah.
was born Mercedes AMG Petronas.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that,
but
that's also not direct.
Yeah, so the thing was like in 2008 there was a recession, right?
Right.
It was a global recession. So amidst that, a lot of F1 teams had to grow because F1 is a
Expensive
Expensive
sport.
sport.
So among them, Honda actually couldn't do F1 anymore. So what they did is they sold their team at a very very cheap rate to Ross Brown, who is also a very famous team principal. So yeah, they
And
sold.
then Braun GP.
Ross Brown
Yeah.
was, I believe, a part of either McLaren or
No,
Ferrari.
he was a Ferrari.
Yeah,
I think he was in
Ferrari.
Ferrari when
Yeah.
Schumacher was
Yeah,
winning
yeah,
all those
exactly.
years in
Yeah.
2000s. Yeah. So a big figure
Yeah, so
again.
amidst that entire Mercedes and Ferrari scandal, what also happened is that a lot of senior directors had to leave Ferrari as well.
Yeah.
And because of that, Schumacher got upset and he decided to retire.
Yeah, I mean he was like a advisor for Ferrari, I think at that time.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
had retired, but and I think another thing which is good to know is like in that not good to know, but that 2008 season McLaren was supposed to be the constructors champions,
Right.
but that title was also stripped away from them because of the scandal and all. So yeah.
So then we had Braun GP, which then
Yeah.
eventually evolved into the current team we know right now.
Yeah.
So 2 years, I believe, 2008 and 9.
No,
Or
only
9 or-
2009. It was like a one season.
Oh yeah, and
wonder
they
season
took
that they had.
Mercedes took over midway, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing was like, okay, so they got control. The thing was like Honda had done a really good job on the chassis and stuff. So they just needed a good engine supplier, and that time we know like Mercedes is like an A-spec supplier of engines. So somehow they convinced Ron Dennis, who is like the team principal or like a senior
Okay.
position at McLaren,
Right.
to give the rights to Braun GP. And yeah, from like the first race only, they were so much ahead of the competition because of that like diffuser system that they had. That was like another scandal involved. So yeah, they were like 1 seconds ahead of everyone in every qualifying session. So yeah, they got they had a very good season that season, and seeing that, Mercedes decided to go in with Braun GP.
Yeah, so what happened in late 2009 is that Daimler, so the parent company of Mercedes, they bought a minority stake in the said Braun GP, and eventually they started investing more and more and ended up taking the majority stake. So yeah, by 2010 they got the team completely, and as the drivers they had Nico Rosberg, and since Ross Brown is back, Michael Schumacher decided to come back.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Mercedes is a German company. They needed German drivers
German
to
I think it
represent
started off with
themselves.
Team
Yeah, and-
Mercedes GP,
Yeah,
right?
it's- Oh, is it? I don't-
Yeah, because Team Mercedes GP, the German brand,
Mhm.
had two German drivers, Schumacher, and he was already the 7-time world champion by then, and
I mean, he was
Nico
coming
Rosberg.
out of,
Nico Rosberg,
yeah,
right?
I mean, he was coming out of his
Yes,
retirement,
exactly.
right?
Just
So-
because I think Braun was back.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he came back.
and it all aligned for him. It was a German team. A
Yeah, I mean,
favorite.
it was a new team, so it was hard for them to consider
yeah.
to gain to.
But then
gain a lot
again,
of
like they had
sponsors.
just won. Braun GP had won the constructors last season.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
So how many seasons did Schumacher do with
I think
Mercedes?
it does 10, 11, and 12. That's like 3 seasons.
Okay, so
So-
after he moved out from 12, then we had Lewis Hamilton coming.
Yeah, eventually
From McLaren,
from McLaren.
a
From-
new team.
And
Yeah. So that was also a pretty controversial move. So yeah, I mean Hamilton known for controversial moves, moving to Ferrari next year.
Okay, I think what is important to note is like Nico Rosberg during that period beat Michael Schumacher, who was like the 7-time world champion in every 3 seasons, and that also by a considerable margin, not like just by 1 or 2 points.
Right.
So I mean, he was proving that he's on the level of possibly being a challenger to the FIA championship, drivers championship.
And then we see Hamilton move to Hamilton moved to Mercedes, and then what went wrong? Like, because as far I know, they were pretty good friends, right?
Yeah, I mean,
F1.
before F1, they knew each other because almost every F1 driver knows due to their karting days and stuff.
Yeah.
So like they're good friends, and I think it was just that they both wanted that title so much, and they knew like Mercedes in the hybrid era was so far ahead of everyone else that it was just the fight between the two of them. They didn't have any other rival. So because of that, I think it was just it was kind of, I don't know the word, but yeah, obvious. Yeah, that's it. So it was kind of obvious that they would fight each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's commonly said that the biggest rival an F1 driver faces is his own teammate.
Yeah, because they are same cars,
same machinery, same team,
same engineers. We also saw that. I mean, a brief of that with Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo, right?
Yeah.
The Azerbaijan incident, that was pretty interesting.
Well, Nico and Lewis also had their own interesting
Spain,
incidents.
that was crazy. How he went off the track on the grass. And then
I mean,
both
who would we say was at blame over there?
I feel it was Hamilton.
Okay, let's talk about it afterwards. Let's
Yeah.
Let's
I mean,
build
first, I
up
think-
to that. Let's build up to
Let's
that.
build up to that. Okay.
Because I think we should first cover their past of like who they were.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about Rosberg.
Okay, so talking about the two main characters, the protagonists, Nico Rosberg, Lewis Hamilton. We all know who Lewis Hamilton is, 7-time world champion, arguably the 8-time world champion. No. only
8-time world
7.
champion.
Only 7.
everyone has done that
So
mistake.
everyone knows that. So what about Nico Rosberg now?
Yeah, so about Nico Rosberg, he was born on June 27, 1985, to his mother and father. His father, again, K.K. Rosberg, was another world champion in 1983.
I think Keke Rosberg, Nico Rosberg, and Damon Hill, Graham Hill are the only two
Yeah.
father-son pairs, right?
Yeah, like
That have won both. That have won both championships.
I mean, there might be more. I don't know, but
No, I think
I
these are the
know for
only
sure
two.
that these two are there. So yeah, so growing up, Nico began the championship kart racing. I mean, now he's German, but before he had a Finnish passport. So when he was 10, bringing up with him a competitive mindset that made him cry when his father beat him at tennis. Early success in karts depends upon Nico's resolve to push himself further and convince his father to help him. KK became his manager eventually, using his extensive network of connections to good advantage. He knew that he was doing, having shrewdly managed the career of double world champion Mika Hakkinen, again. And yeah, he was also Nico's boyhood hero. So I mean, he rapidly progressed into karting's top ranks, where one of his main opponents was Lewis Hamilton. In 2000, the teenage prodigy became teammates in fierce Formula A karting championship, while the more naturally talented Hamilton tended to beat the hard-trying Rosberg, which is a common theme in their rivalry. So, but at that time it remained friendly, not as toxic, if I can say that later on. So yeah, their shared passion to climb the motorsport ladder made them kindred spirits. They engaged in youthful things, tossing a mattress out of the window.
And the video clip
VIP
where he tossed the cap on his face.
Yeah, I've seen that.
In the cool down room,
In the
right?
cool down room.
Yeah. So yeah, in 2002 their career paths diverged, with Hamilton remaining in karts while Rosberg moving to single-seaters. In the Formula BMW ADAC series, the 17-year Rosberg won the championship and earned him an F1 test drive with Williams, who was eventually his first team. So yeah, the team with which KK won the driving title also. Strengthening the family connection, Nico then joined his team Rosberg's race to the F3 Euro Series, where in 2 seasons he had 4 wins. In 2005, Nico entered the GP2 category with the ART team, another famous team. I think our current Ferrari team principal, Fred Russell, is also from ART, if I'm not wrong. With 5 wins, he became the first GP2 champion, while also serving as a test driver for Williams. After this, he continued with a lot of achievements. Eventually, he turned out a coveted place to study aeronautical engineering at Imperial School in London.
He's an engineer.
He turned down.
Okay.
So after scoring the highest ever marks in Williams F1 test, engineering aptitude test, so he was signed as a Williams driver in 2006. And I think in his first race only he gained points, it was like I think 6th or 7th. So I mean, you knew like from the start that he's a good racer. If you give him the car,
he will deliver results.
Yeah, he will deliver results. And I mean, you see that Lewis is much more of a natural, while Nico is much more of a hard-working figure. So I mean, that is another way to look at their rivalry. It is not just like they are very similar in way. They are different drivers with different methods.
Right.
So something similar to football or soccer, I believe. Messi is
Messi. I mean, no soccer, only football.
Please.
So like we can see that Messi is a gifted one, while
Yeah.
Ronaldo is the one who has done.
I wouldn't say
most
gifted. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of hard work going behind there.
Yeah,
but
sure,
you've hit a
sure.
nerve, and I don't think we should talk about this more.
Yeah, I mean, then eventually, Nico joined Mercedes GP in 2010, where he competed with Schumacher for the first 3 seasons, and we'll go on from there. But before that, we'll talk about Lewis.
The other side of the coin, Lewis Hamilton. Right, so still I rise. That is something, these words are there on his shoulder, they're on the back of his helmet. And
Are they behind us somewhere?
No.
On the backs.
Good.
Not a Lewis Hamilton fan, I see. And since he came into the scene of F1, a young rookie driver for McLaren who moved to Mercedes in a very controversial move, all he's done is risen to the top of the all-time pole positions and the all-time wins. Right, his hero Ayrton Senna was a comparable figure, I would say. Right.
Yeah.
So is he the GOAT? One can argue. Right, 7-time.
They can only argue.
7-time world champ.
7 only.
7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. And I mean, I would say he is the best out there. He's having a tough time recently.
Yeah, but that is much more of Mercedes' fault rather than Lewis's fault.
Exactly.
I feel personally.
Exactly.
I mean,
Right.
Russell is still doing way better.
And this season, yes.
But regardless, he's got there his way. Twinning his relentless speed with a refusal to conform to stereotypes of how racing drivers should think, dress or behave. And I also, if I'm not wrong, he's the only black driver in the history of the sport, right? Yeah, definitely.
That's why they had the special livery during the entire Black Lives Matter crisis. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
They moved from silver to black.
So,
Livery.
yeah. So respect is hard-earned in F1, but Hamilton, or rather should I say Sir Lewis Hamilton,
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
to be precise, has it from every one of his peers. Why? Because they know that whatever the track, whatever the condition, be it wet or dry, mediums or soft, he will always deliver. He will always get the results that you want.
Sorry to interject you there, but I think Lewis has the most wins on different tracks, if I'm not wrong. I think Max
Lewis has the most wins.
Yeah, but like I'm
Yeah.
saying,
That's
like
it.
in different scenarios will perform. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying that he has the most wins on like different tracks.
Yeah, so basically whatever the situation, when his visor goes down, the lights go off, it's hammer time.
Yeah, it's
Right. The 7-time world champion, the most wins, pole positions, podium finishes in Formula 1 history. And I mean, off track, he has a lot of interest as well. He's
I
a
mean, with
philanthropist.
Mission 44,
Yeah,
I
Mission
think.
44. He recently started his non-alcoholic drinks company.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Agave. It's
no
very
idea.
recent. It's very
Okay.
recent. I mean, if
I
you
mean, I know
follow-
Sebastian Vettel started something with drinks. Like he had that interview recently where he was promoting
but
that.
What I'm
but-
saying is, if you do follow Hamilton on his socials, right, you'll
Okay.
see it's very recent. It's something similar to what Kendall Jenner did with the 818.
But
Tequila.
8 it is alcohol.
Tequila. Yeah, but like this is non-alcoholic, right? So, so beyond F1, he has a lot of interests. He's an environmentalist, a social activist, fashion designer. That is very evident in
Yeah.
all the way he turns up
On
for the
every-
races.
yeah,
Right? He's a
yeah.
musician and a force of global change in a nutshell.
I mean, musician. I think I think it has been discussed. Like Charles Leclerc and him next season, they're going to do some new production.
They aren't making cars in Mandello anymore. It's a music production company.
Yeah.
Right, so there are many sides to Sir Lewis Hamilton. Few sports people have had the impact that he is not only in his own sport but beyond. And at 39, he's still hungry to achieve and deliver more. Respect is hard earned, but I think Hamilton has gotten.
Yeah, I mean, for being a 7-time world champion, that just sums it up.
Yep.
Yeah,
But-
I mean, no one can disagree that he's a great driver.
Yeah.
No matter
He's
what.
a great driver, and I think recently Alonso said in one of his interviews, it was the last person you want in your rearview mirrors is Hamilton.
Yeah, even though in Chinese GP we saw how skillful
Yeah.
Alonso is, just to see his caliber. So I mean, for someone of his stature to say something like this means a lot.
Of course. And I mean, it also comes with the experience, right? Alonso, again,
Yeah.
one of the oldest drivers on track.
Mhm.
He's had so many races. He's been in and out of.
Yeah, I mean,
F1.
he has
seen
beaten
so many
Schumacher,
drivers.
Exactly.
like at that dominant period.
During the dominant period, yeah.
So yeah,
So from someone of that capability, that experience, that stature, as you mentioned, to say something like that, it does have a big impact. I mean, it surely is. It means something. It has a gravitas to it.
That's true. So eventually, both of them they got into the same team at
Yeah,
the same
so
time.
now we've
so
seen-
I think in like 2006, Nico got his seat in Williams. In 2007, Lewis got his seat in McLaren.
Mercedes
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, Mercedes McLaren. So I think the first podium that they both shared was in 2008 Australian GP, in which Lewis won. That was the first race of the season. It was Lewis's season that seemed completely. He won the championship by like I think 3 points ahead of Felipe Massa. But like yeah, in that first race, him and Nico Rosberg finished on the podium, and I've seen that video of them celebrating, getting on their podium, acknowledging each other that they finally reached the stage. So yeah, that is how we go about
So
it.
now we saw Mercedes, how Mercedes came into the picture. We saw
Yeah.
how Nico Rosberg and Schumacher came, and how
Yeah, I
poor
mean,
kid
I think
from-
what it is, I will mention this about Nico Rosberg too, that in Williams he had we know Williams is a very legendary team. I think it
Yeah.
has the second most constructor champions behind Ferrari.
No, that'd be
So-
McLaren, no Ferrari, McLaren. then
Okay, yeah,
Williams.
sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was saying, but at that time, Williams were not as dominant as they were. They used to get the odd podium here or there, or odd win here or there, and Nico knew this. So because of this, he made the switch to Mercedes.
Right.
Okay. That's a decision which is, I mean, we can see it. Bronze GP was really competitive,
Yeah.
and they took over. Mercedes took over Bronze GP. So it's a move which we can see is a profitable move for Nico.
It made sense for him.
Yeah. As for Lewis, we all know how.
Yeah, I mean, what I
I
would
mean-
say about his move is McLaren were dominant till 2012. And everyone was thinking why Lewis is making that move, because in 2012 he made the move. 2013 was when he
Yeah,
It
I think
happened, but in
Lauda had a
2012
big hand. of
yeah.
Convincing
So
him, right?
I think it was Lewis said why should I come and join you guys while McLaren is second and you guys are fifth.
Right.
And then what Niki Lauda said to him was I mean in McLaren you will be
One of the
yeah.
few
Yeah.
champions.
but in Mercedes you will
You'll
be
be the
the
first
first
champion.
So that is one of the biggest reasons why he joined. And of course he saw the factory, and it was a very calculated move at that time, although in a recent interview somewhere I think Rosberg said that it was a stroke of luck.
I mean,
Somehow...
somehow-
linking his Ferrari move, can it be a sort of luck to
Yeah,
that?
because now we've seen Adrian Newey is about to leave Red Bull.
Yeah.
And now will he take the road to retirement, or will Papa
I
Stroll
mean-
would Papa Stroll lure him into Aston Martin, or will he go to one of the arguably the most history-rich, heritage-rich car
Yeah.
manufacturer.
I mean, in
in the world, that is
2014 he
Ferrari.
wanted to go, if I'm not wrong, to Ferrari, but that move didn't cement it because of various reasons. You know, like they're going to give him like a apartment in Monaco, and they're going to fly him out from there to Maranello. That is like crazy.
Yeah, so interesting only. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson had a really interesting quote on when Hamilton switched from McLaren to Mercedes. Yeah, in Top Gear, he said something that Jeremy Clarkson. He said that it's like moving from a Ferrari to a Renault or something in terms of a road car. Something similar to that. I don't remember it exactly.
But
yeah.
the results speak for themselves. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that move cemented Lewis Hamilton as a very calculated
Yeah, I mean,
figure.
before that he had won one championship.
Yeah.
After that he won 6 more.
I mean, like in 2013 season also we couldn't see a lot of difference because you know there were not new regulations implemented into F1 that happened in 2014. But like you could see, like I think he got his first win at the Hungara ring, and like you could see, like it was the right move. It was along the right path.
Right.
So now we'll jump into the rivalry.
Yes.
From
Now we've had the
2014.
introductions.
Yeah.
And it's time to hit where it hurts.
Yes.
Time for the sauce.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting, I mean this entire conflict between Rosberg and Hamilton.
I think you can span it over 3 years, right?
I mean that's those 3 years was the only 3 years in which they were together in
Yeah.
Mercedes as a team.
Yeah.
2014, 2015, and 2016.
I mean, before Lewis came, no, I mean they were also in 2013 because that was not the season when Mercedes were competing with each other, but you know they were still teammates. Like, and at start it was like okay, they are already friends, so it will be a good relationship between the two. They respect each other, and yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but they weren't as competitive in 13.
Yeah, they are not.
Yeah,
that
so-
competitive.
So shit got real in 2014.
Yeah, I mean in 2013 it was just Vettel, and Vettel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Winning 9
and
races in a
where is
row.
that?
was
Where is
it?
that? Where is that?
Yeah.
Here also.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
That is in India, by the way.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So let's start with the 2014 season. Param, talk us through what happened in the 2014 season.
Yeah, so I mean, 2014 season was. I've opened the official F1 site, which states the summary of the F1 of the 2014 season. So the title is Hamilton's title, but only just.
Oh,
Okay.
So
spicy.
spicy. So I mean, it started off in Australia the season, and it was Mercedes dominating as we had all predicted before. It was, I think, Hamilton on pole with Nico Rosberg back on the front row. But Nico Rosberg won this race because Hamilton had an engine failure. Now, I mean, look, Hamilton was in leading. He was in the lead. He was comfortably going to win, but he had an engine failure, and Rosberg won it. But the narrative didn't continue because, you know, of course, it was Hamilton. He wanted that title. He has wanted that title since 2008, and yeah, he came up. So in a gist, I would say the season ushered the most significant rule change in history, with naturally aspirated 2.4 liter V8 engines replaced by the new 1.6 liter turbocharged V6 power units with their complex ERS, which is the electrical system, if I'm not
Hybrid era. Mercedes era hybrid.
yeah. So teams now had to complete races on 100 kg fuel, around 30% less than in 2013. Whilst drivers only were allowed 5 power units per season rather than the 8 engines that they got
Earlier.
So
Earlier,
yeah,
yes.
blown diffusers, which had been a key performance differentiator in previous years, were now banned. A move that had a bigger effect on some drivers than the others. So aerodynamics and tire conservation remain crucial issues as they are still. Now they are even more in the current seasons than before. But teams and drivers also needed to master their complicated technology and how to optimize the use of mechanical and ERS systems, which affected the horsepower and economy, thus the race strategy. So given the complex new systems, it was perhaps inevitable that the teams would face reliability issues in 2014, as we saw with Red Bull and Renault. But the doomsayers speculated the worst. Well over half the field made it home, at the first race in Australia, a testament to the brilliant work done by the F1 Racing's many extraordinary engineers. So the battle for the title between Hamilton and Rosberg naturally held the center stage throughout the season and was not decided until the final race. And Mercedes deserved full credit for letting their men race at all times, even when the timings got very tense mid-season.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course it was going to get tense. I think somewhere in Spa, I think there was an issue.
It was not like Bottas and...
No.
I mean, I believe
this is James.
Yeah.
This is probably the call.
They had to do that because they had prior experience with Rosberg and Hamilton having the same.
Yeah.
So that's why they clearly prioritized Hamilton over Bottas in all situations.
I mean, they wanted to avoid that, right? So it makes sense.
And it makes sense to avoid certain situations as well.
Yeah, so following Rosberg's season opening victory in Australia, Hamilton won the 4 races in row, next 4 races. So in Malaysia, Bahrain, China and Spain, to take the points lead for the first time. But after Rosberg's controversial trip down the escape road in Monaco, which effectively clinched him the pole position, that was another issue. I think Hamilton was on a flying lap, but he couldn't complete it because Rosberg did that. So, it clinched him the pole position. The German won to get his nose back in front. Rosberg then extended his lead with a gutsy second place in Canada when Hamilton retired with the same ERS or rear brake problem that the German was forced to cope with. So, we see how, hard work of Nico Rosberg was eventually helping him out in some cases. But this gave Red Bull their first victory of the season, which was, that time it was much needed because in the last 3-4 seasons it was just Red Bull.
Quietly, dominated.
But another note is that it was Daniel Ricciardo who won it, not Sebastian Vettel, their 4-time world champion
and I think he won it in Canada, right?
Yeah, he won in Canada. So after that, in Britain, which is Hamilton's home. It was his turn to avenge Rosberg, if we may say that, who had won the previous race when Hamilton leading, suffering a tire failure. It wasn't straightforward. The Briton had screwed up in qualifying on his home turf, as tricky track conditions had dissuaded him from pushing hard for the pole lap, for the pole position, forcing him to retire. Despite seeing his points lead slashed, Rosberg wasn't down for long and took the advantage of Hamilton's brake failure induced off in German's qualifying to claim his own home soil triumphant next time out. So up to this point, the two Mercedes racers' relationship had generally been good throughout the season, save for a few grimps. Hamilton grumbled about Monaco, just as he did when he discovered that Rosberg had turned his engine up against team protocol to try and beat him in Bahrain. Rosberg likewise had complained about Hamilton in Spain, but in Hungary the intensity level was raised when Hamilton, who started from the pit lane after his car caught fire in qualifying, refused to comply with what he deemed to be an unreasonable request from the pit wall to Rosberg past midway through the wet or dry race. It was a mix of both. So Hamilton then robustly defended third place from Rosberg on to the final lap, as friend Daniel Ricciardo again excelled at another win ahead of Fernando Alonso's Ferrari in second place. So in the next race, which was the Spa, Rosberg was determined to lay down the marker. Though perhaps not quite one so controversial. Challenging Hamilton for the lead on the second lap, the German touched the Britain's left rear tire. See, we have seen this. So with his right front end plate, Hamilton, with the damage sustained, limping home with a puncture. Rosberg dropped out to second after a nose change.
When did that happen?
It was in Spa. As I said. So this is what gave Ricciardo his third win of the season. So
I think the most part, the person who's benefited the most is Ricciardo. I think he's an 8-time race winner.
Yeah, he's an 8-time race winner. 3
of them are in this season itself.
Yeah, and I think most of them are in 2016. I think after this, so you can.
So when stuff got even tighter, even more dramatic, spicier.
So yeah, in Italy, Rosberg twice got his braking wrong going into the first chicane, as we know that in Monza it is very crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second time under considerable pressure from Hamilton, allowing the Briton to take victory. Then in Singapore, the German had his second retirement of the season when the foreign matter in his steering's wheel electronics prevented him from getting off the grid. And yeah, another ERS problem for Mercedes, as we can see, and Hamilton won again. So I mean, we can see like Rosberg was giving it his all, but you know, coming to the end of the season, it was like Hamilton was kind of getting that.
Not necessarily Rosberg's fault completely.
Yeah, not his fault. So yeah, a fortnight later in Japan, Rosberg led in the rain, built a blinding race by Hamilton, and a sensational pass around the outside at turn 1 allowed the Briton to extend his points lead. And he did again after winning in Russia, as Rosberg's first corner outbraking attempt backfired and doomed the German to an afternoon of play catch-up to second place. So in the US, Rosberg led again, but a determined Hamilton was able to slip ahead to take his fifth victory in a row. So Rosberg later admitted that he was just not good enough in Austin. So yeah, fighting for his championship hopes, the German showed resilience in Brazil, beating Hamilton and thus setting up the situation where Hamilton had to finish second in the season finale at Abu Dhabi to guarantee himself the second driver's crown. Rosberg took his 11th pole of the season in Dubai, but Hamilton owned the race from the start, and Rosberg was beaten before an ERS problem dropped him back in the 14th place, effectively evening the score between them of 2-3 failures in the whole season. So yeah, while the title fight was in doubt until the very end of the season, Ricciardo's 3 victories, his podium finishes in Spain, Monaco, Britain, Singapore and US left him clear of anyone else in third in the driving standings. Vettel, his best finishes in a disappointing year, second in Singapore and thirds in Malaysia, Canada and Japan. So yeah, I mean, this was a great season for Mercedes. They have finally come back onto the scene of the F1. We can see that, and Hamilton won it. I mean, I remember in the last race, I think Prince Harry was there. It was a great moment for Britain to finally win a driver's crown. So yeah,
and I mean, what we saw in the 2014 season is that Nico had 11 poles, which is like more than half of the races.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some interview has admitted that he is even better or at par with Hamilton in qualifying.
Yeah, but that changed drastically in 2015. What happened in 2015 is that Nico Rosberg found Lewis Hamilton to be at pole a lot of more times than Nico Rosberg himself was at pole. So just talking about the both of them, Hamilton had more pole positions than Nico Rosberg in the 2015 season. So, I mean, that part is really good. But in general, compared to the complete dominance of Mercedes in 2014, there was a slight, very minor inconsistency in 2015. So before we get to that, like I told, Hamilton looked very comfortable and incredibly quick compared to Nico Rosberg, and he was the reigning champion at that point, and he won really easily in Australia. But before being beaten into the second in the surprise of the season, as Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari demonstrated how much the progress they had made by winning in.
I think this was Vettel's first season at Ferrari, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. 2015 was the first season. They won in Malaysia in the second race itself. And after that, things started settling down for Mercedes with Hamilton. He was victorious in Bahrain and China before Rosberg beat him fair and square from pole in Spain. So yeah, we still see Rosberg still getting some amount of pole positions, but Hamilton still has a lot more poles. And Hamilton should have won easily from the pole in Monaco, which he had finally convincingly turned the tables on his teammate. Since the last 2 years, Rosberg had the pole and not Hamilton, which was a big deal for Hamilton since he finally got the pole.
Yeah, I mean, if we
and in Monaco,
Monaco is like that great circuit.
Even from the pole, it's really difficult to overtake in Monaco. And so the Englishman got everything together and was utterly dominant in Monaco till now, but that very dominance was missed by Mercedes strategists to an ill-fated late race pit stop that caused Lewis Hamilton the most deserved success of the year, which is Monaco, like I said. And of course, the Silver Arrows, they still won courtesy of Rosberg, who held Vettel home after neither had stopped again, and Hamilton trailed them in the third place, barely able to contain Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. So it was Rosberg, Vettel, Hamilton, and then Daniel Ricciardo. So the only thing that prevented the race from being an utter public relations catastrophe for Mercedes was a dignified manner in which Hamilton dealt with the fiasco. So he dealt really well with it, and when he was back on form immediately in Canada, where he led Rosberg home before the German beat him again in Austria. So we're seeing a lot of alternation between wins.
Front and back.
Yeah, front and back. So it's like we saw straight 5 race win streak
For Lewis.
So far, nothing similar has happened. But on the British track, however, poor starts had given both Mercedes drivers work to do to overhaul the Williams duo of Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas. And further poor getaways enabled the Ferraris to pounce again in Hungary. And as Vettel won from the Red Bulls of Daniel Kvyat and Daniel Ricciardo, Hamilton, who went off early and was later penalized, was Mercedes' best placed runner in 6th, behind Toro Rosso's Max Verstappen. A common theme which we see now, behind Max Verstappen. And later even McLaren's Fernando Alonso. Again, a common thing.
I mean, this was McLaren Fernando Alonso.
Yes,
So
an absolute beast, if I must say.
the driver, the beast.
Not the McLaren.
We have discussed this on our first podcast. So
Yeah, and Rosberg also had a puncture really late in the race, which led him 8th. So not a good race for Mercedes. Hamilton came 6th and Rosberg came 8th. But Hamilton was back on top from Rosberg in Belgium, which was the next race, and won again at Monza, where his teammates' engine broke. And curiously, the Mercs were way off the pace in Singapore, as neither of the drivers could generate tire temperature. And Vettel won again for Ferrari, and Hamilton retired only that single time in 2015. And with Rosberg being 4th behind Ricciardo and Kimi Räikkönen. So an aggressive second corner move on Rosberg won the race for Hamilton in Japan, and he took Russia to when the German ran into the throttle problems. So we see Rosberg dealing with a lot of technical issues as well. So not completely Rosberg's fault, like we said before.
Even in 2014, he had a lot of issues.
but like we can see, like this season Mercedes have improved on it. Like they don't have as much last year, but they're still there.
So even similar first corner moves were made by Hamilton in Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I think in like one of the interviews somewhere, Sebastian Vettel said to Nico Rosberg in a way he said like, why don't you take Lewis out in like the first corner, second corner, then I'll go through.
Yeah. So I think it was the interviewer who asked how the Mercedes dynamics.
Yeah.
And Rosberg had a very diplomatic and cold answer to it. But Vettel very cheerfully said that, why don't either of you take each of you out and I can go through. Yeah.
I mean, like this season, like, Sebastian Vettel was getting back the win, so, he was kind of happy in Ferrari, his dream, so it was a happy season for him, we could say. A good start for his Ferrari tenure. But going back to our topic.
Yeah, so like I said, in US again, he made a first and move on Nico Rosberg was at pole, and he just led the race throughout the USGP of 2015, and that won him not only the race but that also guaranteed him the driver championship with 3 races pending. So again a bit of bad luck for Nico Rosberg, but after those the 3 races which were remaining, all the 3 races The pole position was of Nico Rosberg, and Nico Rosberg converted those pole positions to wins as
I
well.
mean, I think this was the Rosberg run that they had. Like in this, like in 2015 season, he had 3 wins, and then he continued the same form for in the 2016 season. So even though Lewis had won and got his title, it was like Rosberg was like, fine, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it everything that I've got, and I'm going to challenge Lewis till the end. So yeah, I mean, this takes us to 2016 season.
Yes.
So
So coming into the
also one more thing that I
season-
should say before the 2016 season started, I think there was a move between the mechanics of Lewis and Rosberg. So basically, the mechanics were with Lewis for the last 2-3 years were now with Rosberg, and Rosberg's mechanics were with Lewis. So I mean, it is notable to note this, seeing how the season goes ahead. So Ayush, now you may continue.
So, final season, 2016 season,
Yeah.
the final season for Rosberg. But if we talk about it in the present tense, we don't know that yet,
Yeah.
right? So, the 2016 season was a tense and emotional. It was a draining title fight for that was finally settled in the most intense fashion in 2016, and it was Nico Rosberg who came up on top, right? So let's start from the top, right? Let's delve down into what actually happened. So the Mercedes drivers weren't the only headline act of the year. Red Bull's Max Verstappen staked his claim as the sports superstar of the future. He was a very young driver for Red Bull
At
at
what
the
age?
time.
He won his first Grand Prix at 18, I think. A teenager, he didn't
Yeah,
have his
yeah.
normal driving license, but he was still.
A Grand Prix winner.
Yeah.
Right. So Max Verstappen, the superstar, and his teammate Daniel Ricciardo did everything to convince that they deserve world championships as well, and it's not just a Mercedes word. But perhaps fittingly, given the major regulation shake-up from the 2017, this year, that is the 2016 year, also saw a changing of the old guard, with the retirements of not just Felipe Massa and Jenson Button, but also Rosberg, who announced his shock departure just days after securing his first drivers' championship, saying that it was mentally too draining for him. He said,
Yeah,
and I
I mean-
remember that he threw everything at Lewis for this one championship.
Yeah, I mean, you're going up against a 3-time world champion with complete focus in the prime of his career.
Exactly. So obviously it's
you know,
going to
you
take a
have
lot.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
Progress is in progress, no matter how small. So, how did it all unfold, right? Predictably, the title fight was between Rosberg and Hamilton at Mercedes. It was a story in several parts, which notably saw Hamilton coming back from the mechanical adversity to close down a 43-point deficit and turn it into a 19-point advantage, right? Before Rosberg staged an equally dramatic fight back of his own. And it was at that Hamilton's engine failure in Malaysia, notwithstanding the failure, which ensured that the German subsequent success was not merely a matter of luck and 100% mechanical reliability.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this season also Hamilton had a lot of poor gateaways from his starting position. Like he couldn't straight away get into. Like if he was on pole, he used to go back to 10th, 11th, and then used to climb up again to get that podium. But
So both the drivers very tight in the fight. Hamilton may have deserved a 4th title, but equally Rosberg deserved a 1st, right?
Yeah.
So having won the final 3 rounds of 2015, March saw Rosberg pick up where he left off as he made an excellent start to his new season with victories in Australia and Bahrain, where on each occasion Hamilton made poor gateways due in part, like you said, but then he made it up, right? So Rosberg won again in China as Hamilton had to fight back following a 3-grid place drop for an unscheduled gearbox change and damage sustained in Bahrain, which was then compounded by his first MGU-H failure in qualifying. Right, that is, I believe, the hybrid system.
MGUH is the
Yeah.
recovery system.
Exactly.
It recharges the battery. MGUH and MGUK.
Right, so I think that was damaged for Hamilton, and that he needed a replacement. Right, so that left him at the back of the grid, and he was delayed by the celebrated clash between the Ferraris, Daniel Kvyat, and then Red Bull No, Daniel Kvyat was at Red Bull
Yeah.
at that time,
Yeah.
and Sebastian Vettel, where he
Yeah, I
sat
mean,
in
I
the
think it was
cool down room, like you can't just come in like a torpedo.
yeah.
Right? Yeah, so that famous clash happened, and
I mean that's like another story. Like I think Helmut Marko wanted to get Kvyat out of there because he wanted Max to take that seat at Red Bull, but he couldn't find a reason for it. So he used this whole Sebastian Vettel and Kvyat rivalry to eventually give that seat to Max Verstappen, and I think you should lead into the Barcelona race for that.
well, we'll get there, but
Yeah.
let's see how the title showdown actually went down.
Yeah.
So crucially, Rosberg beat Hamilton to pole in Suzuka by 0.013 seconds, and as he duly converted the win. Right, Hamilton had to settle for third behind Verstappen, and after yet another bad start in recovery drive, now the title was Rosberg's to lose. Right, with 313 points to Hamilton's 280, he could afford to finish second in 3 of the 4 remaining races and third in another, even if Hamilton won all of them.
Yeah.
Right, so a lot of room.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think if you go ahead, it is like he just does that.
Exactly. So that's exactly what happened as the Englishman dominated in the United States, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi to surpass Alain Prost's tally of 51 F1 victories and move into second place in the all-time winners list, only behind Michael Schumacher. But with the four second places, the last of which was won in the most trying circumstances,
Yeah.
as his teammate tried
To back him into, I think it was Sebastian Vettel.
Yes.
Vettel
It
and
was
Verstappen.
Vettel and Verstappen. Hamilton's only hope of keeping this title alive was if Rosberg fell to 4th. And Rosberg held on to emulate his father's 1982 success and take his first title ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when this race was going on, I think Bono, said to Lewis that go fast, you don't have to back out so much. And then Lewis said, no man, I'm trying to win my drivers' championship.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to lose, and that's why he's doing that. But you could see that Mercedes were not like unjust towards Lewis or towards.
No. At that point, I really feel like someone mentioned earlier that they had left them to race.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it came down to sheer racing and not team strategies or someone like Nico Rosberg did face a lot of technical issues. But when you look back into the era during the Civil War, as this podcast is named, I feel it did come down to racing at a point. And 2014, 2015, Hamilton was on top. But in 2016, like I said, Rosberg did recreate his Rosberg did follow his legacy, follow his father's legacy, right? So he did it the hard way. And can you guess how tight the final points were?
I can't.
Rosberg 385, Hamilton 380.
I mean, the next closest I think we have seen is in 2021 when.
No, not next closest. That is even closer than this,
Okay.
right?
I mean.
No, that is 25 for the first point and 19 for the second point, right? So that's 6
Yeah.
points. But this is the old points convention. If I'm not
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
2016 point
Yeah.
convention. But regardless, 5 days later, we learned that again, like his father,
I think it was at his ceremony, like the FIA ceremony, where they hand out the prizes. After that, I think Rosberg announced that this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it. Like it was just after 5 days, and like his father, it would be his only drivers' championship.
I mean, I don't know if he gave a explanation for why.
Yeah, so it was his childhood dream, and like I said, he had to throw everything at Hamilton to get that title. And the 31-year-old took the brave decision, a decision which I feel, and many other journalists and enthusiasts feel, that it was not timed correctly. But regardless, he opted to quit whilst at the very top of his game, safe in the knowledge that his F1 legacy would thus remain forever untarnished.
Yeah, I mean, we see now Fernando Alonso racing at the age of 43.
Yeah.
That is crazy, but to retire at 31 is, I mean, you won't do that just after winning an F1 title, right? You want to go and do it again. But I think what is important to note is that after having that battle with Hamilton, it just showed how draining it is mentally and physically too.
Obviously, yes.
I mean, I've heard like somewhere like it has been said that he had to visit psychiatrist weekly. To
He
keep up
himself
his
said that, I believe.
Yeah, to keep up
yeah.
his mental health, to cope up with all the pressure that he had. So yeah.
Yeah, but it actually just shows that in spite of Rosberg, retiring at 31, Hamilton is 37 right now and still has a lot of eyes at him.
I think it's 39.
That's 39.
He's 39, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
He's 39 and he still has a lot of eyes still at him.
And
a lot
he's
of
signed.
eyes that he has signed.
Yeah, he's signed.
So,
He is making career moves.
yeah, at 39. So,
And I mean, it shows that if there's a possibility that Rosberg would have continued after that.
I mean, I think it comes down to one of the greatest what ifs,
Yeah, actually.
right? What if Ayrton Senna didn't die?
Uh,
What if,
Michael Schumacher didn't have his key accident.
yes.
Yeah.
What if, no, but I feel that time he retired already, right? Schumacher
No, he
retired.
was in
No,
Mercedes.
this was like
He was in
it was
Mercedes.
got in 2013. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so again, like, what if Rosberg did not call it quits?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
So one of the
we
greatest
see that.
what ifs
We
in-
see that. Okay, the current 20 drivers which we have right now. Hamilton is the most experienced, the most decorated driver, and Rosberg we are seeing as close as the competition Hamilton ever got.
I mean Sebastian Vettel was
at
there.
that point of time.
Yeah,
at that point.
Yes, definitely.
But we can just think that what if he didn't ever return? What if there would have been such? I mean, we can't ever guess what would actually have happened. Maybe Mercedes would have to leave one driver out. Maybe they would still have to continue with both.
Yeah, I mean tensions were there throughout the season. Mercedes had to handle that fiasco to next level. But yeah, after that, I think Sebastian Vettel was his main rival for Lewis Hamilton, which
Yes, Sebastian Vettel then followed by Max Verstappen, right? But
Yeah,
again,
everybody.
Hamilton on top, not every time, but contention, right? He was in contention. Well, yeah, that is the silver war for you. And like, share, subscribe, and the podcast, and follow SAE on Instagram to be in touch with legacies of F1 and everything automotive and mobility related. To the third episode. So, starting from the 2014.
रुक जा.
Khush, why are you going down?
So, starting